Hi, this is Mark Philippi. We are having the ninth hangout of the Sensible Project Manager Hangout community. I am really excited about today's hangout. This is I am joined by what is it? There's looks like 8 people. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7 people plus myself, or seven people including myself. We have partnered, if you haven't seen this yet, we have partnered with PM Chat. PM Chat has been working on Twitter for a little over 2 years now. I had a great conversation with Robert Kelly, and we decided that this would be a great way for us to get together. So the topic of the day is how to manage virtual teams. Well, and the way this is going to work with PM Chat is, as we go through the Hangout, the PM Chat is going to have the same topic, and many, if not all of these folks that are joining with me today are from PM Chat. We've all experienced those conversations there. It's great, and this is just a way for us to have I guess, elevating both communities on the conversation. So with that, let's get started. First of all, I guess maybe before I can do that, Deanne, you're going to kind of monitor the Twitter streams for PM Chat. Would you send out a tweet to everybody that if they want to watch this Hangout live, then they can go to sensiblepm.com/hangout. And at that location, if they're not a member of Google then they can watch the Hangout there. So that's sensiblepm.com/hangout. And those that are in the community, they can go to the event page and watch the Hangout there. Now, if those that are in the community, and all of the conversations in the past, we've had comments that occur on the event page, I want to change that up so that any comment you have, let's use PM Chat for that, and then everybody will be able to hear that. So with that said, let's get right to it. The starting out of this is always fun. Let's start with announcing yourself. Let's introduce yourself if you would. We'll start on my left, I guess, all the way to the left. We'll start with you, Alan. Why don't you introduce yourself, and everybody take turns, please.
Hi. Well, my name is Alan Daly. I am a Agile coach with Big Visible Solutions, and it's interesting that my background is software engineering, not project management. But of course, as an Agile coach, Agile is and the suites of things that you do in Agile are kind of project management and also other kinds of project-oriented flow and other things. So I've become part of that community, I think, and I'm interested in contributing today.
Great. Thanks, Alan. Carson?
Hi, my name is Carson Pierce. I'm from Yellow Pencil, which is a web development company, and my official title is Director of Production, but no one really knows what that means. Essentially, one of my main responsibilities is portfolio management here, so I oversee the PMO and make sure that all of our projects are coming together. And relevant to this conversation, we actually have 3 offices. So we have a main office and then 2 remote offices. So dealing with remote workers is part of my day-to-day, so it should be interesting.
Very good. Thank you very much. Dale?
Hi, I'm Dale Richards. I work for Rosetta Stone here out of Harrisonburg, Virginia. I've been here for about 7.5 years, almost 8, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. I'm glad to meet you. I have a son that just got back from Brazil, and a daughter that just went to Peru, and so they've been using Rosetta Stone and loving it.
Great to hear.
Deanne.
I'm Deanne. I'm here in Italy, but I actually no. I was about to say that I'm not Italian, but I am now. I am an independent professional, and my company is Unlike Before Limited. You'll know me on Twitter as @UnlikeBefore, and I manage and deliver business technology change projects for clients all around the world. So
Great.
I'm working virtually as well as on-site, and managing virtual teams as well as any other combination you can imagine.
Great. I love the mix that we're seeing here. Ivan.
Hello, everybody. This is Ivan Rivera from Mexico City, and I'm very glad to be with you here today. I think this tool is marvelous. I'm really impressed.
Great.
Do you hear
Thank
me?
you. Yes, it did, and I will try to make sure I get your name right. Ivan is how you call it. Is
Ivan,
you say it, right?
yeah, Ivan, it's right.
Great. Well, welcome. Robert Kelly just joined us. Wonderful.
Hey guys.
Hey, we're just introducing ourselves. Introduce yourself for us. I think everybody knows you, but you know, they might not have seen you.
Hello everybody. This is I am Robert Kelly. Seeing some of your faces for the first time, and you guys same with me. I am going to be all over the place today as I try and run the PM chat over on Twitter. I also have family in town, so I'm on vacation, and I'm sleeping in late and drinking coffee and just kind of being lazy this morning. So I'll be bouncing between the two. You guys are awesome. Thank you for all your support, and again, it's great to see you all.
Great, thanks. And just so you know, so you don't drive yourself nuts, Deanne has volunteered to kind of monitor the chat room in PM chat, so that should be good. And looks like we lost somebody, so when he pops back on, we'll talk. So with that, let's get going. Let's see, I gotta take it off. There we go. Just wanted to get started with the idea that there is, again, the topic today is managing virtual teams. So this is something that I've enjoyed throughout my career. There's about half of my career has been with doing that. And so I've got some some thoughts on that. We'll see if they're great or not. But one of the things I wanted to do, first of all, let's talk about the benefits that we see from having virtual teams. So with that, does anybody want to share their thoughts about what benefits you see from virtual teams? So specifically, I think I heard, Deanne, you said that you are working as you're virtually working as well as you're managing virtual teams. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a lot of the time, because of the nature of the beast of where I choose to live and the clients that I work for, often I'm working from home as well as traveling. So the benefits of that are that I get to be at home, of course, but also that has an advantage in terms of I can be far more productive at home. So I've not got lots of time traveling and spending in traffic jams or any of those sorts of things. So I find my personal productivity is higher. Having said that, though, the disadvantages are that sometimes it's better to be in front of people when you're trying to, you want to look them in the eyes, see if what they're saying is actually matching what they're thinking. And also, another thing that I do personally is that I tend to shift my day. So if the time zone difference is so much, or I've got meetings at different times, then I'll often compromise and work later or be up earlier or shift my day to fit in with the team, so they get the benefit of my presence, but also I get the benefit of more real-time interaction with them. So it has advantages and disadvantages from a management point of view.
Completely agree. And by the way, thank you so much for not showing up in your pajamas since you're working from home.
That's okay. It's actually 6:15 in the evening here, so bit late to be in my PJs.
Okay. Dale? Did you raise? Oh, Dale's talking to somebody else. So anybody else have any?
Well, I do want to comment actually.
Oh, please.
But I was, trying to address someone else who was actually here physically with me in the building. One of the advantages of virtual teams is that it allows companies or organizations to tap into talent pools that might be specialized or unique to specific locations. And I'll share an example. At Rosetta Stone, we recently have opened up offices in places like San Francisco and Austin, Texas, where the human capital in software development might be even richer than in Washington D.C. or in the Virginia area where we are located. And so virtual teams allows us to collaborate with people that have specialized skills that might not be as easily available in the areas where we're located. So that's one example.
Well, especially I would guess in your industry where you're relying on the expertise of knowledge of languages, you probably have to grab people from all over the world.
Right, and you can only do that to a certain extent, right? Getting people to come and relocate to their headquarters in a specific location can only take you so far. You have to ask yourself questions about, when are we going to have to actually go to where the talent is, because it's either too costly or just not practical to bring them to where we are, and so you have to go where they are. So that's a very delicate balance that you have to navigate.
Excellent. I completely agree that looking at that talent and going to where the talent is rather than having them move to a central location, that's a great benefit. Okay, anybody else want to throw out some ideas on some benefits that they've seen? Yes, Diane.
That's just that's a common theme that's coming through the responses to the first question on PM chat. So everybody tends to agree with that.
With the talents that are all over the world? Yeah.
The widespread talent, also 24/7 coverage can be helpful. The time zone spread, but definitely the spread of talent and tapping into that across different geographic locations.
Excellent. So, perfect. The other part of it that you mentioned was the 24-hour. In a software development, my background is in software development, and from a software development point of view, we can actually turn from an 8-hour work day to a 24-hour work day, because really development happens as it follows the sun. So you turn in into a 24-hour workday potentially. So that's one of the things I think you mentioned in the PM chat.
Yeah.
Good. What other benefits you guys can see from that? I have seen personally that although there are some additional costs, there are some cost benefits as well. For instance, labor in different parts of the world can be a little bit cheaper, and so using virtual teams, I've been on teams that had both Indian presence as well as teams from Mexico, and so I think that there's a cost benefit there as well. Other thoughts? Okay, so with those benefits, absolutely there follows challenges. So some of the challenges are directly related to those benefits. One of the challenges that I've seen personally is how do you get, and I would say probably the biggest challenge, straightforward, and I think, Deanne, you said this, is how do you communicate? There's communication challenges because people are all over the world. You got to think about time zones. When are people going to be awake so that you're not waking people up in the middle of the night? Those are some of the challenges. So what are you guys' thoughts about the challenges that are out there? Evan?
Yeah, it's easy to figure out that English is a preferred language to use in these wide work groups. But we have this situation. I'm not a native English speaker, and I have to talk with Indian people or Latin American people, Brazilians. So we have to work in our English because it's difficult. If it's difficult to talk in another language, when these people we're talking to is not English spoken by birth, you have all these situations. I am trying to figure out how to express myself, so this happens all the days.
Well, you're doing well. I actually would commend you for your English. You are very understandable, but you bring up a great point, especially when you are looking at a global virtual team. You
Exactly.
are definitely have to consider communication with the language, because everybody, um, frankly, English has become the business language, and so you are having to communicate outside of your native tongue in many cases.
Exactly.
Can I raise my hand?
You just did.
So I think when I worked at Lenovo for a while, I was in a worldwide services group, and one of the things that we always were trained on doing was acronyms and different metaphors are very difficult, right? So I think most folks who are in the U.S. have a hard time speaking correct English to begin with. You have to imagine that folks who it's a second language, they have to do all the translation in their head, and terms don't always translate well. Right? My wife speaks Spanish, and it's funny because she will say, if we're going shopping, she always messes up, and instead of saying toilet paper, she says paper toilet, and I kind of laugh at her. And but we have to remember that in business is that acronyms and metaphors, you got to pull them out when you're talking with international teams, and really consider who you're speaking to.
Yeah, you're right. And to add to that, local colloquialisms. Um, there are things that we might say in one culture that could very well offend another culture. So now going back to what you're saying too, Dale, I love the fact that you're from Rosetta Stone, because you can probably help solve some of these problems, right?
Yeah, I was just tweeting, English is the language for business, but for all others, there's Rosetta Stone. So, I mean, if you're asking about applications for Rosetta Stone in terms of being able to communicate better with virtual teams, wow, I wasn't expecting to do a commercial for us right now, but we definitely have both English and British and American English products that take you up to advanced levels that have top-notch audio content and all that. But I actually want to make kind of a comment to piggyback off of what Robert was saying. I've noticed that we have teams in Japan, Korea, in the UK, and Brazil. So we also have. I mean, we're in distributed markets. Not only do we have development teams around the world in different places, but also we're actually selling into different markets. And so I've noticed that as I'm speaking with people here internally to our U.S. business, that I do use expressions and phrases that are common to our culture very frequently. But I've noticed that I have kind of a different set of English phrases and methods of engaging other people when I'm speaking to our Japan team, for example, or our Korea team. Part of it has to do with speed. The pace at which you speak so that people can clearly understand you. And I'm kind of a naturally fast talker, so I definitely have to tone it down. Part of it also is just the semantics that you use when you engage these virtual teams, and to kind of negotiate meaning, to restate, make sure that you understood what people intend. It's kind of this, it's almost like it's this kind of lingua franca of English business where it's very respectful and very polite and very slow and very precise and questioning and reconfirming and making sure that you understood before you move on. And I found that to be very helpful for me when working with especially teams in Asia, where I've tried to practice new norms of English communication that is different from the English that I use when I'm communicating with other people here in the States. Very clear, direct, and it's very cautious and slow and certain as to what the outcome is of every discussion, every meeting. So that's what I've observed. Not from like our product. I'm not trying to sell you a product. I'm just trying to say kind of what has helped us to use, to work effectively in our virtual teams.
No, I appreciate that. Absolutely, that is one of the biggest challenges is trying to understand that even though we might be speaking English, first of all, it's not necessarily always their first language. Secondly, remember to always consider that communication on a local area, local colloquialisms and terms will not necessarily translate. So make sure you're deliberate about that communication. Hey, Deanne, just wanted to check in with you. Then I'll get to you, Carson. Deanne, is there anything specific in the PM chat that is coming out?
Yeah, just more on the language side is around non-verbals communication. So we just obviously discussed the verbal language differences and how when you're working virtually with a team spread across multiple countries as well as cultures, how difficult that can be or how challenging that can be, but also the non-verbals. So if you can't see the person, video calls like this are quite useful because as Dale was waving his hands about, I was thinking to myself, that's something that I do a lot as well, gesticulate. I must have lived in Italy for too long. But the non-verbals, and as I was saying earlier, how people, facial expressions and how people are behaving and how they're looking in comparison to the words that they're actually saying. I've worked with development companies in India quite a bit virtually, and one of their cultural habits is to shake their head when they're saying yes and smiling. So very mixed signals like that as well. So you have to be very conscious of that. That's coming through in the PM chat, non-verbals, as well as the other challenge being the time zone differences and who is taking the graveyard slots and for conference calls and things like that. So
great. Thank you. I completely agree with both of those points, especially. Dale, Carson, you were raising your hand.
And actually, Deanne covered most of what I was going to talk about. Just in terms of that's okay. We have some people whose first language is in English, and if you're just doing a phone conversation, a strictly voice conversation, that can get really tricky to pick up on those accents. But once you introduce video, and we use Google Hangout almost exclusively with our different teams, but once you have that visual, you can overcome a lot of that. And in terms of time zones, we're in 3 different time zones with our company, and I don't have an answer to this. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. But we have it's difficult, especially when we have meetings that have to cross over between all 3. How do we accommodate for someone who's on the East Coast versus West Coast, and we end up having a lot of meetings in the middle of the day when people here are right in the middle of their work. So that gets to be tricky, and I don't know how to get around that really.
So does anybody have thank you. Does anybody have any suggestions on what you have found in the past relative to time zone changes, or how do you guys work through that? Any suggestions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just kind of a practical, although it's not exactly the easiest way to do it or handle it, perhaps. I've seen when certain people in different locations need to spend concentrated time working together, half the team or whatever in one location may actually shift their work hours to match the other location. For example, half the team on the West Coast might start their day at 5 a.m. so that they're starting their day at the same time as the East Coast, and then they can work their full 8 hours or their full day in sync with the other people in the other time zone. That makes it hard on the people who are making that shift, but for a short week or 2 duration, it might be doable and actually have good results.
Okay, so actually shifting time, the actual work hours for a certain group of the people. Okay, that'd be great. I have somebody.
It's Stephen.
Oh, who raised their hand?
Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
I managed to get another device so that I could get around the connection problems. I have actually used the time-shifted device for aligning with other time zones, and of course the other real big benefit is, of course, it does move you out of the congestion chaos. I mean, getting to work at 5 in the morning and leaving at 3 gives so much time back. It was absolutely brilliant. I enjoyed it so much.
So you're actually giving a little bit of a different twist from what Alan was saying. I think Alan was saying maybe a whole shift. Maybe you're moving your whole hours over, and what you're saying you experienced was more of a partial shift. So you're just starting the day 3 or 4 hours early, and that gives the benefit of not having to worry about traffic, right?
That was it, and that was really just to align across Europe and to catch some of the Australasian hours as well.
Okay, and so where are you calling? Where are you at right now? Are you in UK or are you in Australia?
Yeah, no, I'm in the UK. I mean, most of my projects have been centralised in the UK, but many of them are global and have covered most time zones.
Okay, so it just occurs to me as we talk about this, even this Hangout itself, we are probably representing probably close to 7 or 8 different time zones that we're working to, and for me it's 9:30 in the morning, and I'm sure that what's the latest we have, Deanne and probably Stephen. What time is it there?
Deanne's an hour ahead of me.
Okay. And so, Stephen, you're at what time? Oh, we missed you. So
Half
sorry.
past 5.
5:30, and that means, Deanne, you're 4:30 or something like that?
6:30.
6:30, I got it. Okay, so we are spanning quite a bit. Did I see somebody? Was it Carson? Did you raise your hand, or?
Well, I raised my hand at one point.
Okay, go ahead, Alan.
I'm kind of steering in a slightly different direction. The title of this Hangout is very interesting to me because I don't like to use the term virtual teams because I like to turn virtual teams into real teams. So I use terms like distributed or dispersed team. Because I want the team to gel and become a cohesive unit that knows how to work together really well, even if each members are in different locations. And this is one of the biggest challenges of not having a team all in the same building or all in the same room or close to each other physically. So I just wanted to mention that as one of the challenges where we want to take our virtual teams and actually turn them into real teams, and doing that across large distances and time zones and so on is hard. Who was it? Dale pointed out that things like language and having to talk slower and other things like that actually slow down communication and make something that might have, even if you're in a visual medium like this, if there's language barriers and cultural barriers, you might have to slow down the communication significantly, like half or even a third as much information can transfer in a given amount of time. So it's very important to create connections as much as you can between people in different locations so you can turn them into a real team.
Great. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. So, in fact, it's interesting that you are in this discussion specifically because you're the agile coach, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because one of the main concepts of agile is you work best if you do not have distributed teams.
Yes.
So how do you? Let's talk about what we do to get the teams to work together as teams. We know that the challenge is because you're not working in the same building and you are in a distributed type of a situation, but what kinds of things do we specifically do to get the teams to work together? Any experience that people have had on that area? And maybe we'll start with you, Alan. What have you done specifically, since you're an agile coach? What have you done specifically to make that happen or help that happen?
Well, let me. I'll just rattle off a few bullet items. Maybe that is a good place to start because people can elaborate on them. I'm a very strong proponent of getting the team physically together when you first launch. For as long as you can get them together, at least a week, if not 2 or 3 or 4. There's a huge cost involved with that, but the savings or the efficiency and effectiveness that you get in the long term from having people made personal relationships and sat together at a meal and things like that are very important and valuable. So I like to see people get together physically at the start of a project or when the team is forming. Secondly, I find it important to create a channel that's always open. Maybe it's a conference call that is always open for a certain number of hours a day, and that becomes the virtual room. In other words, everybody gets on that conference call from 1 to 3 every single day, and then that way they continue to work on what they're working on, but they can just shout to each other and have conversations spontaneously.
So I'm sorry,
Yeah.
let me interrupt you. In that
Sure.
concept where you get people together,
Yeah.
are you saying that what you do is you just open up a conference call for a time period, and then just people come into the room, and anybody that needs to talk to each other, they do that in a conference room, kind of a setting in a conference call?
Well, for example, what if you had a team in 4 different locations, right? And they have an overlap because of time zones. They have an overlap every day of 4 hours. And you just simply have a team rule that says for 3 of those 4 hours, we will all be in a Google Hangout. It's not a meeting, and there's nothing specific particularly going on in that Google Hangout, but we're all in it so that we are kind of simulating being in the same room together for those 3 hours every day. And then that way, as I'm working, and if I have a question for Dale or for Diane, I can just simply say, hey, Dale, I got a question. I'm coding this thing. Can you help me? And the rest of the team can hear what we're talking about, and we can create spontaneous interactions and serendipitous discoveries of information and so on, as if we were in the same room together.
Great.
And if you can't do that with a video, then do it with a conference call.
Okay, good. So I interrupted you. You were going through
That's
your
fine.
bullet list. I thought that was an interesting concept for that.
The last one that I'll bring up, and there's a lot more, but one of the things that I found very, very, very useful is when you finish up that time where you're together physically, and then later on in the project too, make sure that people in different locations are exchanging pictures to each other, so that when I'm talking with somebody, I can actually look at their picture on a wall or on my screen. Even if I can't get video with them, I can see their picture, I can see the office in which they work or whatever. These are subtle things that create higher human connection, so that as you're working together, you have a tighter connection, you get to know each other better, and the communication can accelerate over time.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Anybody else has some ideas that you've used in the past to help that building of the team? How about Deanne? Do you have? Oh, go ahead. Do you have some? Bring in some PM chat conversations.
Yeah. Before, just quickly on that one, the last bit of your question about other things. Robert's going to laugh at this. Virtual pub.
Virtual pub.
It had to be said.
Well,
Perfect.
But that aside, sorry.
Go ahead.
Similar to what you're saying, Deanna, I've seen a team that they were a remote team, but every Thursday after work, anybody who wanted to stay after hours, they would get on Minecraft together. So.
Oh, hey, really, all we're talking about is what do you do to help with that camaraderie? And there's a lot that has to be said about getting around the water cooler and chatting and talking. And it's interesting because there's a lot that happens during that time around the water cooler. And when you have a distributed team or virtual teams, that doesn't happen. And so it's all of these things that you're talking about really do add to the fact that you want to build that camaraderie, because then the team begins to gel and work together. Other thoughts? Yeah, Dale.
Some of these might seem like no-brainers, but I think they're still important to mention anyway. When you have people that are in distributed teams, especially if you have a lot of members of that team, if people are really busy and have a lot of conflicts in their schedules, they might be looking for meetings to not attend. And so it's important for them to feel like if you're going to have a virtual meeting, if you're going to have a conference call or a WebEx or something, that that call is going to be productive. And so a couple things that I would say are important to do: make sure that you have kind of a clear agenda or clear items to discuss, and make sure that there are clear outcomes from the meeting and that they're published. I know that as a general practice, we take minutes, we publish minutes, but I think that becomes even more important when you have a virtual team, because people don't like to attend calls that they don't feel like are really producing, next steps or action items or that are really a productive use of their time. So I think it's important for people to know, if I'm going to join this call, there are going to be takeaways for me. There's going to be new information presented that I need, and there are going to be assignments that I can distribute to others or that they can give to me, and that it's worth attending. Otherwise, people start to drop off, and they might deprioritize your meeting, and then the team itself becomes less cohesive because people aren't engaging with each other.
Great. Good, thanks.
Yeah, good point, Dale.
Any other comments on the building, how you increase the team work or team concept within distributed teams?
Well, it's Stephen here.
Yes.
I have really experienced this when working with a team in India, and a number of and the quality of the handoff has to be very, very high if you're wanting any sort of reasonable efficiency as you go through the different time zones.
So, right, are you talking about maybe either daily handoffs or handoff of deliverables between teams?
Well, it works on almost every scale, doesn't it? Daily handoffs have to be high quality, but handoffs of deliverables also have to be very, very high. I mean, I did read a figure somewhere that splitting a team over 2 floors decreases its efficiency by 7%. So moving a team across two countries must have a real significant impact on its efficiency.
Interesting concept, because you're right. Even if you take a team that's in the same building and move them to multiple floors, it does decrease the efficiency. And then take that concept and move that across continents. That really does add to the problem.
I do have a very sort of small idea of projects. Minimum number of people would be 100, and going up to 1,500 or 2,000. So of course it is very difficult to manage. I mean, you can usually not even get the whole project team in a building. Never mind on the same floor.
Good. Okay. Other thoughts about teamwork and how to improve that? One of the things that I have found effective is kind of going to what Stephen was saying is when I have a distributed team, I would have kind of also what Alan was saying. Alan was taking it a little farther than I've seen, where you do it on a daily basis for some period of time. But I have at least either at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, whatever's common on the time zones we're talking about, getting all of the teams together in a kind of the agile approach, a stand-up meeting. Let's talk about what's happened today. Let's get everybody together so we can know that handoff that Stephen's talking about. Deanne, is there? Let's go to the PM chat. How's PM chat? Are we taking any different directions there?
No, pretty much the same. Q3 was talking a lot about tools. There were quite a few different applications or tools that people were talking about, such as Liquid Planner, eRoom, instant messaging, things like those. There was also a comment that reflected ours about getting to know your team members on a more personal level rather than just, in terms of the work context, which I think, as we know, is quite important. It helps understand people's motivations and behaviours. Other things such as using Google Docs for online collaboration, so people anywhere, anytime can be collaborating together on documents and deliverables, which is good. So those kinds of similar trends to what we've been discussing.
Great, thank you. Let's dig in a little bit more to collaboration tools, because I think that this, with our modern technology that we have, these kinds of collaboration tools, I think, help in a distributed environment. One of the tools that I have used for several years is SharePoint. But there are a lot of different types of collaboration tools. And anytime you take and have the ability to have a single place where collaboration occurs, in something like SharePoint, where you're sharing all of your documents in one place, you have the ability to have chat type of sessions, all of those kinds of things that you have. Everybody can see the schedules in one place. Those collaboration tools I think are effective. So Deanne rattled off a number of different collaboration tools. Has anybody in the Hangout had any specific? Oh. I'm sorry, Robert. I'm laughing at your. I'm laughing at your face. You're playing with Hangout with the Google Plus Hangout. I love that. Is that an improvement on the looks?
That's right. That's right. Like I said, I was kind of worked late, and I was working on a couple opportunities this morning, so I'm sitting around kind of lazy. So I figured that's probably an improvement.
So that's what you do if you haven't brushed your hair for the day or something, huh?
Yeah, I'm getting. Yeah. Well, Yana, I'm getting a tiara for you.
Excellent. All right, now you got me a little bit distracted, but that's all right. We'll get back to this. So, anybody have any specific collaboration tools that? Anybody have any specific collaboration tools that they like to help with those distributed teams?
There's a number of them I have used, and these are ones that I like personally. The company I work for, Big Visible Solutions, we're purposefully agnostic about tools, so these opinions are my own, not a reflection of my employer. I like Kaku.com.
What does that one do?
Kaku, CACOO.com. It is kind of a simplified but very powerful version of Visio, but it allows, say, 10 or 15 people to edit a diagram at the same time. This allows you to do things like, team task board building and other team building and collaborative work that you would normally use, say, for stickies on a board or something like that. You can do that in Kaku, and it integrates with Google Hangout, and so you can run your Google Hangout and be editing a board all at the same time and create some very good collaboration that way with that tool.
Actually, now that you say that, I do remember I have, as I started looking at the Google Hangouts for this venue, I do remember coming across Kaku, and I played with it a little bit. I got a lot to learn about that. But yeah, it's a virtual whiteboard, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, even more than that, it's a diagramming tool. So you can have 3 people building a flow diagram, for example, all at the same time, and chatting with each other via Google Hangout or some other audio channel, and work on it all together at the same time. So yeah, not only is it a whiteboard, but you can do other kinds of documents with it.
Great. Dale, did I see you raise your hand? You had a collaboration tool you like using, or was it just you?
I'll mention one feature of Google Apps, like Google Docs, that I've been using. We actually just made a transition at Redstone from Outlook to Google Apps, and so we're using Google Mail here internally. And there's always a learning curve in the transition. It can be hard for some people. One thing about Google Mail that I like on Google Docs is that I can type up minutes for a meeting in a Google Doc and format it the way that I want to. And then I can click share, and I can put all of the recipients or all the attendees at email addresses from the meeting into the share list, and I can share that document with them. So not only do they get a copy of the minutes and all the action items in their inbox, but they also can go to my shared documents and find the minutes that were shared with them, so they can go back and reference them at any time. So I don't know if my stakeholders are actually doing that, but at least there's a record that they can access without having to search through their mail.
Great. Yeah, Carson.
Yeah, we use Google Apps a lot too, especially Google Docs. Exact same way for meeting minutes. We can do collaborative meeting minutes, so if there's multiple people that need to make notes, we can all do it at the same time and make sure that things are being captured. Beyond that, we use a program called Active Collab, which you can purchase and host yourself. It's very much like Basecamp, so if anyone's used Basecamp before, you can do the same thing. But that allows us to have discussions relative to projects. We can upload files, share, and all that sort of thing. So that's been a huge one for us.
Great, thank you. Others? Robert, you're making me laugh.
I can rattle off a whole bunch of different Agile-based ones for those that are using Agile in their projects. And there's a number of them. If you go, rather than me go through all that, the best reference I can give you for those types of tools is a site called userstories.com. That's a site that's put together by Mike Cohn, one of the Agile thought leaders. But essentially, it's just a list and user comments on different collaboration tools for project planning using Agile or Kanban or other types of planning methodologies. So you can go on that site and look for ones that are free or that have commercial value or whatever. So there's different ones up there, some good, some bad, but at least it's a big list to start experimenting and looking at.
So just so you know, I will, after the fact, I'll go through and see if I can add anything that I can pick out of this discussion, add them as Hangout notes so that people can see some of these tools that we are talking about. If I can capture those, I will do so. Any other thoughts on collaboration tools?
I'd just like to add one. It's one that we all use quite a lot. Well, I know that I do, instant messaging, whether it's Skype or through Google Gmail or any other instant message tool that you may have on your list for very short, quick, sharp clarification questions or chats. You can, have multiple people in an instant message conversation, and you can clarify something very quickly, depending on the context of the clarification or the question, whether you need to track it or anything else. There are various ways to save the instant message chat conversations. But I find that extremely useful, especially when people are spread all over the place and you don't want to try and find someone on the phone or email them or whatever. Then it's very, very good for quick questions and answers.
Great. So Deanne, while we have you there, we have about 5 minutes left. Any last things that you're seeing there on PM Chat that can take us a little bit different for the last 5 minutes?
Yeah, the one of the question 4 that Robert asked, excuse me, the PM chat group was about, excuse me, concerns or disadvantages of using those tools, and one of the big things that came up was around security, and a lot of organisations don't have with firewalls and security and all of those kinds of things. A lot of the freeware tools they're not too keen on you using. However, the other point that PMChat have made is that often the in-house tools are not as flexible or as quick as the ones available outside or freeware on the market, so they're behind the curve basically. So that was an interesting comment. Generally though, everybody is commenting along the same kinds of lines again as we've been discussing, which is interesting to see.
Yeah, you're right. Interesting that that some of you are using Google Docs. In the organizations I've worked at before, free type of solutions like the Google Docs, they haven't been readily used, and so because the companies I've worked for, they like to I guess control that a little bit more. And so there is, along with making this happen for an organization, whether they choose to go in the path of something like Google Docs or they have to stand up specific solutions to help with that, there is a cost associated with having virtual teams because of those collaboration tools that will help those teams to go through. Okay, we're needing to wind this up. Any last thoughts that any of you that have? Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
Just wanted to address one of Carson's earlier questions about time differences and how to not disrupt the working day when someone wants to have a meeting in the middle of someone else's working day because it's bad for that time zone. I think one thing that you might consider, Carson, is like if you can you can kind of minimize, depending on the size of your team, if you can minimize team participants in some of those meetings, and if you can kind of have like the one representative of each working group or each location, perhaps just have like a check-in on a regular basis. It doesn't have to involve everybody. If you can also establish some kind of norms or patterns among the distributed teams that, hey, this hour from 12 to 1 or from 1 to 2 Pacific time is like designated collaboration time, and so whatever you have going on, you're going to need to structure your workday and your productivity around being ready to engage other people during that specific hour, and then kind of address conflicts as they arise to work around that new productivity structure. So it can be tricky. I have a weekly call like every Wednesday night with my Japan team and on one of my projects, and there are a lot of people in the U.S. that are participating in that project, but they don't all participate in that Japan call. It's one or two other people, and that way there's enough contact between members of the team here and members of the team there that we can split up and be productive and come back together only at a designated time. So it reduces the amount of contact that we have to have during a work week.
Great, thanks. Any comments, Carson, on that?
No, that's all really good. We actually have just started discussing the idea that we need to have 10 different stand-ups for our different projects during the week, and talk about that very same thing of saying they're only 5 minutes each, but we need to block them all into, say, an hour-long span of time so that they're all happening so people know to block that time off.
Great. Well, we need to wind this up. I want to thank everybody that has joined both here in the PM Hangout as well as PM Chat. I have learned a great deal from this. As I said, I've done a fair amount of distributed and virtual teams before, and I've got some tips from this discussion that has helped me, so that I will probably implement. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining. This has been a great hangout. Thanks again to Robert for helping me put this together from the PM Chat point of view. as well. I wanted, just before I let you go, I wanted to announce one thing. I'm starting a new type of a Hangout. Oh, and Robert, you wanted to say something before I do. We've started a new type of Hangout that I want to invite everybody to. This is more of, we're not going to talk about project management. It's a networking Hangout. I've got it scheduled for tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock 7 o'clock a.m. On Saturday. And this is just to get together, network. Anybody that wants to show up, I'll be there and we can talk. So, Robert, do you have any closing thoughts? Robert?
No, actually, I was just waiting. But again, thank you so much for setting this up, Mark, and for the community. Some new faces and some old names that have been on the PM Chat community. I really appreciate it. This is awesome. We'll figure out the flow. There's a lot going on between the Twitter and the Hangout. But this is really great. Thank you so much, Mark, for.
Oh, you're welcome. And you kind of cut out there the last bit. And again, thanks for the new look that you have. You're very sporting during the Hangout. All right, thanks again. We'll sign out. This has been a great Hangout. Thanks again. This is Sensible Project Management Hangout number 9, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks.
Bye.
Ciao.
Oh, bye.